can handle it.
Okay. Nobody here.
Take it.
Would everyone please rise while we recite the council prayer? Dear God, today as this session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our fathers. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be good for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilor Martin.
Here.
Councilor Armin Mercia.
Here.
Councilor Rita Mercia.
Here.
Councilor Milanazzo.
Here.
Councilor Broderick.
Here.
Mayor Caulfield.
Here.
Councilor Elliott.
Here.
Councilor Kazandrian.
Here.
Councilor Lenzi.
Here.
9 present.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. The chair would like to recognize Councilor Rita Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to offer a moment of silence in darkened chambers for 3 lovely ladies who passed away within the past 2 weeks. The first is for Lorraine B. Reed, born in Lowell, retired in Florida, married to her husband for 40 years, and is survived by her 2 sons, Dennis, who works for the city in the Water Utilities Department, and my boss, Deputy Al Pear, with the Middlesex County Sheriff's Department, and who is a Lowell High School football coach. She also leaves behind 1 daughter, Laurie, 7 grandchildren, and 9 great-grandchildren. And also, I'd like to have darkened chambers in a moment of silence for Frances Latham, a woman of remarkable character and devotion to not only the city of Lowell, but to her family as well. She was the mother of 9 children, one of which is Lowell Police Officer Jimmy Latham. She also leaves 22 grandchildren and 13 great-grandchildren. She was a member of the Veterans of Foreign Wars Ladies Auxiliary and an avid volunteer of St. Patrick's Parish, as well as a member of St. Patrick's Ladies Auxiliary. She was a great lady, and she will be truly missed. And the third woman is Mary Roman Auskas, a lady who gave her all for the Lithuanian community and her church as an avid participant in many Lithuanian cultural events, such as participating in the Lowell Folk Festival since its inception in 1990. Mary was a member and past president of the DLKV Lithuanian Ladies Auxiliary Club, as well as a member of International Institute of Lowell. Many of us on this council were delighted to see her enthusiasm during her Lithuanian flag raising ceremony over the years, as her daughter Ramona presided at this event every year. She is survived by a son Robert and 2 daughters Ramona and Niola, 7 grandchildren, 12 great-grandchildren, a brother Joe, and a sister Julia Benzowitz, who is another pillar of the Lithuanian community. She will be truly missed. Thank you for allowing me to bring these lovely ladies' names in.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Bill Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would also ask us to recognize Jim Downey, who died unexpectedly this last week. Jim was an avid runner, but I got to know him in his service as a youth baseball coach. I know he served in many leagues over the city, including the Mill City Baseball League, where I got to know him. He leaves his wife Kathy, who works at the Sullivan School, and 2 children. Like many, many, many people, gave countless hours to the youth of our city, and we value that contribution, and he will be missed as well.
Would we all rise and have a moment of silence in darkened chambers for these 4 outstanding citizens of our city? Thank you very much. May they rest in peace. Moving on with the agenda, I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes of the last meeting by Councilor Milonazo, seconded by Councilor Rita Mercia. All in favor of accepting the minutes and placing them on file, signify by saying aye. The minutes have been accepted and placed on file. Communications from City Manager Lynch, responses to the council motions. Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There was a lot in the packet here, and much of it is good news. I was going to make a motion, or I am making a motion to refer the trial court term sheet to the Economic Development Subcommittee to review. I mean, if you want to give a recap tonight, but I think going forward, we probably got to bring it to the subcommittee to make sure the council's up to speed on that. We had some news. I know some of us have been bumping into people with the delay of the opening of the dog park, and some issues there that I think, yeah, I know the city's working on, but I know it's a concern for some people that we were ready to go, and maybe a false start, and there's some, I don't know if it's confusion or people need to get on the same page to make sure we get it started.
With regard to the dog park, I think we've cleared up those issues. The issue is one of working with Lowell Unleashed on the issue of indemnification. If a dog misbehaves, we want the city to be indemnified, and there seems to be now an understanding of what we're looking for on that. And I think we're hoping now that we'll be able to open the dog park sometime in mid to late June.
Thank you. And lastly, it's just another kudos to the city solicitor's office for the opinion decision on the Lachulis Liz Pendant's action. Got another bounced out again, so on another issue. So congratulations, and keep up the good work.
Council, what was that motion you wanted to refer to? What was the subject matter?
The Judicial Center, the term sheet, trial court. It was in the packet.
Yes, but when you open up your discussion, you wanted to make a motion to...
Oh, yes, I make a motion to refer it to the Economic Development Subcommittee.
Okay.
For
I'll second
discussion.
that.
Seconded by Councilor Milonazo. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Anyone else like to? Councilor Martin and Councilor Rita Mercia.
There is a report, I believe, on Councilor Milonazo's motion about sign ordinance in here, and there's a fairly comprehensive report, but it does indicate that there are a large number of variances being granted for signs, that recommendations from the planning board and DPD staff are not really being followed, and then there's an additional number of variances above and beyond that. So it does not appear that the ordinance is working very well. So my motion is going to be to refer the matter to the zoning subcommittee for further study. There hasn't been, I think, really any serious work on the sign ordinance in 20-plus years. When we did the comprehensive look at zoning a few years ago, we really didn't get into signs, and you know, maybe the rationale for the number of variances is justified. I'm one who always hates to penalize the person who comes forward and seeks the permit, whereas somebody who just goes up and puts up the sign without seeking any permit doesn't get, you know, any resistance at all. So I think we need to either become serious about code enforcement on the sign ordinance, or perhaps even pare it down so that there really isn't, we're not putting people through the drill of having to seek a variance that's going to be, in many cases, automatic, or, you know, people are putting up so we have to be serious about whether there's a real need for this, whether we have the right regulations in place, or whether we should just pare some of these back. So the motion is to refer for further study to the zoning subcommittee to come back with a report and recommendation.
Seconded by Councilor Broderick. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. The motion carries. Anything else on the council readmission?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The last council meeting, I made a motion regarding the traffic lights on Gorham Street at Highland Street, and I've been there a number of times since then, and it's still backed up onto the highway. Be that as it may, the report, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the city manager, said that the traffic engineer will conduct a traffic count and signal timing analysis and a recommendation. And when that comes, I'd like to know the results of the analysis when it is completed. That's all I want to know. Thanks.
Thank you. I just have one issue, Mr. Manager. The report we received on the Kentucky Fried Chicken Hadley Street situation, I would like to see a stop sign installed in their parking lot so customers who use that facility will know Hadley Street is not a continuation of the parking lot. And that hasn't been done, and I'm very fearful that someone's going to just drive into the middle of Hadley Street some night, cause a serious accident. And they painted a white line, and the white line is not the answer. They're going to have to put a barrier there of some sort so people will know that Hadley Street is not the parking lot of Kentucky Fried Chicken. And I appreciate if you can address that.
Mr. Mayor, we'll certainly follow up on that and see what we can do. I think one of the issues that we encountered there is it is private property, and we're limited in specific regulations we can take. So we will be appealing to the Kentucky Fried Chicken.
I'm not saying the city installed
No, I
anything,
understand.
but it's up to the
Right,
business.
But even in terms of ordering them to do so, but we'll look at our options and see what we can actually come up with that.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilor Kazanjian.
Thank you, Mayor. I totally agree with you on that Hadley Street with the Kentucky Fried Chicken. If we can't get them to put some type of barrier, maybe put a curb there.
Right.
Where I think there's an ordinance where you only have like 32 feet for a curb cut. That has like probably 150 feet on that side street. So I'm sure we can get them to require to put some type of curb there,
Yep.
and that would eliminate that possible people pulling in and out.
It is unusual that you would have that. That particular facility may predate the curb cut ordinance, and that may be the issue there.
Okay.
But again, we haven't exhausted all of our.
Because the mayor's
remedies on
right. You don't
this.
know if Hadley Street's a street when you come out of there, or if it's part of the parking lot, the
Right.
drive-through. So,
Right.
thanks.
And I can't blame the customers. People who aren't accustomed to that neighborhood, they just automatically feel that that's the part of the parking lot, and they're going to come right out someday and have a serious accident. Any other discussion on the communications? If not, accept the communications from Manager Lynch and place them on file. Those communications are placed on file. Moving on with the agenda, we have a request for out-of-state travel. Actually, it's a reimbursement for out-of-state travel. Any discussion or debate on this issue? If not,
Move approval.
move approval by Councilor Rita Mercer, seconded by Councilor Martin. Roll call.
Councilor Martin?
Yes.
Councilor Arman Mercia?
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercia?
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo?
Yes.
Councilor Broderick?
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield?
Yes.
Councilor Elliott?
Yes.
Councilor Kazanjian?
Yes.
Councilor Lenzi?
Yes.
9 yeas.
On the agenda, we have a transfer of $50,100 to Department of Public Works, various accounts, $50,100 from Department of Public Works insurance premium, $36,000, Department of Public Works Brady School, $14,100. Any discussion on this issue? Councilor Milonazo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city manager. On the memo from Mr. Moses, talks about the need for the funds for increased gasoline expenses as well as DEP fines. Can you touch upon the DEP fines?
The two DEP fines, I think, are fairly small. Mr. McCarthy is here. He provided me some detail, but not the entire detail on that.
I didn't hear the question, Councilor.
I'm sorry. On this transfer, Mr. McCarthy, the funds are to be used for the gasoline expenses as well as to pay DEP fines, the Department of Environmental Protection, I guess?
Yes,
The fines, okay.
yeah, we currently have two fines. One related to, a couple of years ago, cleaning them up. One is related to the Daily School oil spill from 1984, 1982 time period, and the other one, I believe, is related to the tanks out back here. We're trying to clear up right now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on this particular issue? If not, roll call.
Councilor Martin?
Yes.
Councilor Arman Mercia?
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercia?
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo?
Yes.
Councilor Broderick?
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield?
Yes.
Councilor Elliott?
Yes.
Councilor Kazanjian?
Yes.
Councilor Lenzi?
Yes.
9 yeas.
Moving on with the agenda. Another transfer, amount of $30,000 to police gas and motor oil supplies, $30,000 from police comp time, $30,000. Any discussion? If not, roll call.
Councilor Martin?
Yes.
Councilor Arman Mercia?
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercia?
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo?
Yes.
Councilor Broderick?
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield?
Yes.
Councilor Elliott?
Yes.
Councilor Kazanjian?
Yes.
Councilor Lenzi?
Yes.
9 yeas.
Moving on with the agenda, another transfer, amount of $6,999 to police gas and motor oil supplies, $6,999 from the police various accounts. Any discussion on this particular transfer? Councilor Elliott.
Just one quick question. I know we're getting close to the end of the fiscal year, but are we setting our fuel? Is this going to cover our fuel expenses from now until the end of the year? The combination of these transfers?
Right, these will, we think these will handle all of our fuel costs for the remainder of this
And
year.
we're just transferring money from other accounts?
Exactly,
There's no money.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, certainly, there'll be some other transfers that come up at the meeting in June and probably the first meeting in July in which we transfer money between accounts to clear up, in many cases, energy-related issues, but also the snow and ice account, we'll be transferring money into that.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, roll call.
Councilor Martin?
Yes.
Councilor Arman Mercia?
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercia?
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo?
Yes.
Councilor Broderick?
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield?
Yes.
Councilor Elliott?
Yes.
Councilor Kazanjian?
Yes.
Councilor Lenzi?
Yes.
9 yeas.
Moving on with the agenda, order of taking portion of sewer line only on Saratoga Street to take by eminent domain in fee sewer improvements on Saratoga Street in the city of Lowell for municipal purposes to wit. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Kazanjian, seconded by Councilor Arman Mercia. All in favor of waiving the full reading signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The full reading has been waived. Second reading by title, to take by eminent domain in fee sewer improvements on Saratoga Street in the city of Lowell for municipal purposes to wit, portion of Saratoga Street sewer line only, taken of only the private sewer line beneath a portion of Saratoga Street. Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilor Martin?
Present.
Councilor Arman Mercia?
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercia?
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo?
Yes.
Councilor Broderick?
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield?
Yes.
Councilor Elliott?
Yes.
Councilor Kazanjian?
Yes.
Councilor Lenzi?
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 present.
Authorizing the transfer of the proceeds of the sale of 172 Lakeview Avenue from the sale of property revenue account to the home program income account. This is quite lengthy. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Broderick, second by Councilor Elliott. All in favor? Signify by saying aye. The full reading has been waived. Second reading by title. Authorizing the transfer of the proceeds of the sale of 172 Lakeview Avenue from the sale of property revenue account to the home program income account. Any discussion? No discussion on this particular issue. Roll call.
Councilor Martin?
Yes.
Councilor Arman Mercia?
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercia?
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo?
Yes.
Councilor Broderick?
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield?
Yes.
Councilor Elliott?
Yes.
Councilor Kazanjian?
Yes.
Councilor Lenzi?
Yes.
9 yeas.
Pursuant to Chapter 13 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, concerning Section 13-6 thereof entitled Temporary Experimental Regulations, temporary traffic regulations are hereby implemented for a period of 60 days, whereas the City of Lowell desires to make temporary rules regulating traffic under actual conditions for a period of 60 days, and whereas Chapter 13 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, Section 13-6 thereof entitled Temporary Experimental Regulation authorizes the City Council to make such temporary rules for a period not to exceed 60 days. Now therefore be it ordered, adjudged and decreed by the City Council of the City of Lowell as follows, effective immediately for a period of 60 days. Therefore, the following temporary traffic regulations shall be implemented. Section 13-156, parking for handicapped persons is hereby amended by adding the following. Jackson Street adjacent northerly side beginning at a point of 136 feet east of the easterly curb line of the Revere Street, running easterly a distance of 20 feet along Jackson Street. Second reading by title. pursuant to Chapter 13 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, concerning Section 13-6 thereof entitled Temporary Experimental Regulations. Temporary traffic regulations are hereby implemented for a period of 60 days. Any discussion? Roll call.
Counselor Martin,
Yes.
Counselor Arman Mercia.
Yes.
Counselor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
Counselor Milonazo.
Yes.
Counselor Broderick.
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield.
Yes.
Counselor Elliott.
Yes.
Counselor Kazanjian.
Yes.
Counselor Lenzi.
Yes.
9 yeas.
An ordinance amending the code of the City of Lowell, Massachusetts with respect to Chapter 11 by adding a new Article 10 entitled Yard Sales. Motion to waive the full reading by Counsel Rita Mercia, seconded by Counsel Milonazo. All in favor of waiving the full reading, signify by saying aye. Full reading has been waived. Second reading by title. An ordinance amending the code of the City of Lowell, Massachusetts with respect to Chapter 11 by adding a new Article 10 entitled Yard Sales. Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Rita Mercia.
Mr. Mayor, are we establishing a public hearing to create this ordinance?
This is going to a public.
Right. And what's the date on that?
June 24th, Counsel.
24.
June 24th. Could we refer this to a neighborhood traffic subcommittee as well? You know, I know that I'm not supposed to form an opinion one way or another, but I'm concerned about this.
Could we have the solicitor just chime in on that? See if it's proper?
Who's behind this creating of this? Because I have never heard anybody telling me that they only want to limit to. I don't think the public even knows what this is about. And I'm not going to slide this right through. I want people to weigh in on this particular ordinance because I think there's merits on both sides. I think people ought to know that there's a definition for a yard sale, what you can sell, how you are going to be limited to 2 times a year, how you shall apply for a permit for $15, how if you have more than 2 yard sales in a year and you sneak one in, you'll be fined. There's a penalty. I want to know who's responsible for this.
We could have a subcommittee meeting, but we couldn't take a vote or any discussion pertaining.
I know that,
Right.
Mr. Mayor. I want to know where is this originating from?
Counselor, it's basically originating out of, I guess, bottom line, it's originating out of my office based upon a number of complaints we've received from residents throughout the city regarding a handful of locations. And really, it's just a handful in which people have yard sales every Saturday and Sunday from May through September. So it affects their operating businesses, essentially flea market type businesses in residential areas, and it's had an impact upon the neighbors. It's certainly not designed for people who are trying to clean out their house and to have a couple of yard sales a year. And certainly it's in the council's prerogative to increase that perhaps, or even, and obviously to vote this down completely. But it was an idea that came out of my office to try to deal with the number of complaints we receive from people who are experiencing these problems in their neighborhoods.
And I understand there probably is these concerns. I happen to have not heard that. But I'm thinking about the person that is, so we're going to penalize the people that want to have 2 yard sales a year. And
No, it's not designed to penalize those people. And again, it's mirrored off of ordinances that exist in other communities that have dealt with this problem. And again, it's not the people that have 2 yard sales a year, and very frankly, it's not even necessarily against the people that have 3 or 4. It's designed to regulate the people who are, every Friday night, trucks pull up to a property, empty out items that don't even belong to the people who live there, and tables are set up, and then Saturdays and Sundays, traffic basically ties up on those locations, and it's under the guise of a yard sale, but in fact it's a business, it's a flea market business that's taking place. And again, it's only a handful of locations, but we're limited in what we can do to address this.
is there a way that we could put this ordinance online for people to weigh in on it and look and see
Sure,
what their idea is about this?
Absolutely.
Because I think that I pay taxes, and I think that I love yard sales. I probably would only have 2 a year, maybe 1. But I know people that like to have yard sales because they need that extra money. And over the years, they've accumulated a ton of what I would call junk, but it's somebody else's treasure. So I I think someone, and there are people that are looking for a bargain all the time, and so I think I want to bring this out to the public to weigh in on it. Not that I want to burden people that are being inconvenienced by trucks pulling in and having yard sales solidly every single weekend for the whole summer. I don't want to do that, but, you know, I don't want to put forth a picture that this is a Gestapo city, that your property isn't worth a darn because you can't have that car on your property that you only use in the summer. You can't have it on there you can't have a yard sale after, you know, I don't want to be the Gestapo to people's enjoyment of their property. And if they can make a little bit of money, maybe twice or 3 times a year, then I don't know, I'm just bringing the other side up.
Right.
I don't want to hurt anybody, but
It will be going to a public hearing June 24th, so anyone interested or concerned, they could certainly...
But if they don't know about it, and I wish they'd do an article in the Lowell Sun to alert people that this is an ordinance coming up, I think maybe people would like to know that. I don't want to sit here and slide something under the carpet and say, move approval, let's have a public hearing, let's get it over with.
Well,
Councilor Elliott?
I don't think we're slipping anything under the carpet. It's got to go to a public hearing. But I happen to agree with the mayor that let's, why don't we send it to a subcommittee? Send it to the neighborhood subcommittee, have a full discussion. I think it's reasonable to have a couple of yard sales, but if they are running a business, then, you know, that's a different story. So I don't think anyone's trying to slip anything. This got to go to a public hearing, but by the same token, let's have a discussion and, you know, the neighborhood, it seems neighborhood would be a proper place or somewhere else. I don't know if there's a...
That's the wishes
place,
of the
but-
council, that's, you know... we can
Before,
certainly do that.
and I would suggest before we send it to, you know, the public hearing, so we know what ordinance, you know,
Well,
unless you want to do it simultaneously.
public hearing is June 24th, so you have ample time to have a subcommittee meeting, and Councilor Milonazo, and then...
No, again, I can understand Council Rita Mercia's position, but again, it is going to a public hearing. We are not trying to slide anything under the rug. Again, my concern with yard sales is that people, again, in my opinion, are taking responsibility once they advertise their own yard sale. They put up signs on telephone poles and light poles, yet those signs never seem to come down, and the neighborhoods are littered with these signs, and they eventually get weathered away and fall into the street and are littered on the street. So, I mean, hoping that this ordinance deals with that issue as well. Again, do I think people are entitled to have 1, maybe 2 yard sales? Absolutely, but again, I think that I'll, you know, defer comment until after the public hearing.
Councilor Amor Mercia,
My question, I guess, is directed to the city solicitor. Can't we just delay this public hearing pending the results of the subcommittee meeting?
Sure. Absolutely.
Ken, I move we delay the public hearing and that we refer this to the subcommittee on neighborhoods and subcommittee.
motion by Councilor Amor Mercia to delay the
Second.
public hearing till the subcommittee has a chance to meet on this issue, seconded by Councilor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
thank you, Armin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That essentially clears up my issue because I wouldn't have been comfortable going to a subcommittee knowing the public hearing is to follow because it makes it very difficult to sometimes even ask pointed questions without giving an opinion. And I think that solves the problem. Kick the public hearing off and you know, I'd like to know how we got to pick the number 2 and what the need is for a permit fee. I understand the need to give out a permit, but is it, you know, to cover the costs of running the program and enforcement, then I can understand. But I think there's some questions as to, you know, how many complaints are we getting? I understand the need for the ordinance, and but I'd just like if we could get some clarification on that for the subcommittee. I'm on that subcommittee, so I look forward to it. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll take a vote on the motion. I just want to add that I receive a lot of calls, and they're negative calls, not about yard sales, people selling cars constantly out of their yard. So I think, you know, we'll have the subcommittee meet and come up with a report and so forth. All in favor of the motion presented by Councilor Amor Mercia, seconded by Councilor Rita Mercia, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. We are now going into the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, come to the podium. It's a public hearing for Verizon request place conduit in Middlesex Street. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, please come to the podium. Give us your name and address, please, or business.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Robert Gracia, and I'm a manager with Verizon New England Incorporated. We have a engineering and construction facility at 28 Diana Lane in Drake-it. And I come before the council this evening requesting permission to place and occupy approximately 10 feet of underground conduit as shown on petition plan number 191. There's an existing utility pole on the northerly side of Merrimack Street identified as pole number 68. And the conduit would run from there to the property line at building number 1527 Middlesex. And that building is an 8-unit plaza that needs facilities for telecommunications.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor? In favor? In favor? That portion of the public hearing is closed. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition? Opposition, public hearing is closed. What's the wish of the body?
Refer to the wire inspector.
Refer to the wire inspector by Council Rita Mercer, second by Council Milonazo. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mr. Grazia, before you leave, Council Kazanjian and the entire council have been working on double poles, and National Grid, we met with them, and they only have like 8 poles. The other poles, many of them, Verizon has wiring and conduit and so forth. That's the reason those poles cannot be taken down. So we'll be giving you a call to see if we can meet with you and address that issue.
Please do. I'll be glad to.
Councilor Kazanjian? Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Moving on with the agenda. By calling members of the City Council regarding Board of Appeals reappointments of John D. Knox and Corey Belanger. Dear Mayor Caulfield and members of the City Council, pursuant to the authority specified under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 12, and the Code of the City of Lowell, Section 2-41, it is with pleasure that I am reappointing John D. Cox of 5 Hampshire Street, Lowell, and Corey Belanger, 59 Foster Street, Lowell, Mass., to new 5-year terms expiring June 3rd, in the year 2013, or until the successors are appointed and qualified. Confirmation by the City Council is required for these appointments and hereby requested. What is the wish of the body?
Move approval.
Move approval by Council Mercia, seconded by Council Milonazo. Roll call.
Mr. Mayor, if I could?
Yes.
Thank you. I plan on supporting the recommendation of the city manager. I have a great deal of respect for anybody that takes their personal time to serve on boards like the Zoning Board of Appeals, but I just thought it's important to state that, at least from my perspective, how disappointed I was when the ZBA voted against the Artist Overlay District over at Western Avenue. And I just think that it's so important that the City Council, the Planning Board, the ZBA really be on the same page when we're trying to move economic development projects forward. So, again, I certainly plan to support this recommendation, but from my standpoint, I just thought it should be stated that I really was disappointed. And then picking up on what Councilor Martin stated earlier about the motion that I had made regarding the sign ordinance, again, 90% of the recommendations from the Planning Board and from the Planning and Development Office were not followed through by the Zoning Board. And again, there could be reasons for that. That's why I think it's important now that we send this back to the Zoning Subcommittee to be reviewed. But again, I just think it's so important that we all try to be on the same page, trying to improve the quality of life for the citizens here in the city. But again, my respect for these two individuals outweigh those issues, so I do plan to support the recommendation of the city manager.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Councilor Martin?
Yes.
Councilor Armin Mercia?
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercia?
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo?
Yes.
Councilor Broderick?
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield?
Yes.
Councilor Elliott?
Yes.
Councilor Kazanjian?
Yes.
Councilor Lenzi?
Yes.
9 yeas.
Authorizing the city manager in the name of the City of Lowell to accept a deed to Westview Road Extension in the City of Lowell from Stephen A. Beatty. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Elliott, seconded by Councilor Armin Mercia. Signify by saying aye. All in favor, signify by saying aye. The full reading has been waived. Second reading by title, authorizing the city manager in the name of the City of Lowell to accept the deed to Westview Road in the City of Lowell from Stephen A. Beatty. Any discussion?
Move approval.
Move approval by Council Elliott, seconded by Council Kazan, seconded by Council Lindsay. Roll call.
Councilor Martin?
Yes.
Councilor Armin Mercia?
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercia?
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo?
Present?
Councilor Broderick?
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield.
Yes.
Counselor Elliott.
Yes.
Counselor Kazanjian.
Present.
Counselor Lenzi.
Yes.
7 present, 7 yeas, 2 present.
Moving on with the agenda, pursuant to Chapter 203 of the Acts of 2007, reimbursing Officer Bucellas $7,500 for monies previously paid and partial satisfaction of a certain court judgment. Motion to waive the full reading by Counsel Milonazo, seconded by Counsel Martin. All in favor of waiving the full reading, signify by saying aye. The full reading has been waived. Second reading by title, pursuant to Chapter 203 of the Acts of 2007, reimbursing Officer Bucellas $7,500 for monies previously paid and a partial satisfaction of a certain court judgment. Roll call.
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Arman Mercia.
Yes.
Counselor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
Counselor Milonazo.
Yes.
Counselor Broderick.
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield.
Yes.
Counselor Elliott.
Yes.
Counselor Kazanjian.
Yes.
Counselor Lenzi.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Accepting the provisions of Chapter 44, Section 53F and a half of Massachusetts General Laws, an act authorizing cities and towns to establish an enterprise fund for the Low Regional Water Utility to be known as the Water Enterprise Fund.
The manager, Mr. Mayor, you skipped one.
Same.
The legislature has passed a law authorizing the communities to do this. But if we suspend the rules this evening and suspend rule number 28, we can vote on this without having to send this to a public.
Thank you.
Councilor Rita, Mercia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I make a motion to waive Rule 28 with respect to requiring a public hearing and take an immediate vote on accepting and establishing this specific enterprise fund for the parking department.
Seconded by Councilor Broderick. All in favor of suspending the rules so we can vote on this particular issue, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Suspensions are in order. Any discussion on this before we, Councilor Martin?
My question is to the manager and relates to really both votes on enterprise funds. And I did speak briefly with the manager about this before the meeting, but I want to be sure that, you know, all the charges that are properly chargeable to these funds that we're able to charge. And in my view, that would include, you know, not just employee costs, but the benefit cost, health insurance costs, retirement contribution costs. So, you know, as long as that's the case, I think these are, you know, good ideas, and I'm fully supportive, but I just wanted to hear from the manager that that is in fact the case.
Mr. Mayor, Councilors, that's an excellent question, and in fact, when you set up an enterprise, you can charge off all the employees, all their benefit costs, all the overhead costs, and all the overhead costs associated with the particular enterprise. All of that, in fact, is outlined in all the different aspects of that. We try to outline within the budget document itself each year. And but yes, all costs associated with that are included within the enterprise fund.
Thank you.
Councilor Elliott?
I was pleased to see this on the agenda, Mr. Manager. You know that I've advocated this in the past, and this is, I think, one step closer to running government more like a business, where we have parking facilities, and the revenue should be paying for the expenses, and the extras should be going aside for capital improvements, so it's not coming back to go on the tax rate, and taxpayers will end up subsidizing garages, as has been done in the past, with the exception of, you know, the last few years. So same thing with the, you know, the water utility account. So I'm going to support both of these, and I think it makes a lot of sense, and it's cleaner from an accountability perspective, and you know, it's a better way to run both of these systems. Thank you.
Councilor Kazanjian?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Manager, set up these funds, or these accounts. I also agree, it's the way to go. But let's say we have an excess of $2 million in each account at the end of the year. You're going to use some for capital improvements, and it's more than you need to operate. Does that stay in that account? Can we transfer it anywhere else? Or let's say in the course of 5 years, we build that account up to $5 or $10 million. Does that stay in that account? Can we ever get it out?
It does stay in that account. But at that point, you could take the action, though, of reducing rates and drawing down that account in that way. But it does stay specifically in that account.
Well, right now, are we taking money from the parking garages and wastewater to support the general fund?
No.
No?
No, we do not.
Okay. So
Well, the wastewater, we did it, there were 3 years in which we were allowed to take money out of the wastewater account to put towards, to reimburse the general fund for subsidies. The Department of Revenue did allow that, but generally that's not the case.
So like I said, what if we have $10 million in the course of 5 years? What do we do with the money?
If you have money in there?
Yeah.
Well, I think in each one of those cases, the places where we're doing the enterprise, wastewater, we have, I think we've had as much as $9 million there, but we have, of course have a massive CSO project, so that
Right.
by setting it aside, it really keeps it in place there for the purpose for which the money was paid and intended. For the wastewater operations, the wastewater capital. So you can use that money then for improvements to that capital. Likewise, in the water, same general concepts apply as you reinvest in your systems. And obviously the parking is the same way, and it'll be a long time before we ever get to a point at which we have that type of surplus within that. But it does stay within that, and the whole notion is the money is paid for that purpose, and it is reserved exclusively for that purpose. I don't see, I understand your, believe me, I understand your concerns. If you,
I don't want to have $10 million in an account, then we have to raise taxes.
Exactly.
I just don't want to see that happen.
Absolutely, right. No.
Okay.
Council Lindsay, and then Council Elliott.
Yes, we had a discussion also with the manager about out-of-order meters and things like that, and I understand we're in the process of looking at a new system that would somewhat solve that problem. Would all of the funds for repairing these meters and implementing a new parking meter system, would they come out of this enterprise fund solely also?
Yes, they would.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Council Elliott?
Well, I just wanted to follow up with Councilor Kazanjian's question, that there has been a surplus in wastewater, but that doesn't include all this debt that we're taking on in the future. And I think that's, it's same thing with the water account. There has been a surplus in the past, but by the same token, all the debt, all of the bonds that we take out is being paid out of the tax rate. And all that is going to be coming out and is going to be paid by these separate enterprise funds, as they should be. I mean, I would also think, at some point we would look at, for the trash, for solid waste and recycling, that should be an enterprise fund. We can't do it, immediately, but because the rates would go through the roof, but I think inevitably we can take a look at that. So there should be a surplus, or we're charging people too much, either for water, wastewater, or trash, or whatever our enterprise funds are, so.
It is a very transparent system that really is geared towards greater accountability, and I think I do think it will achieve that. And I certainly understand Councilor Kazanjian's concern that if it builds up too high, but that's in fact what will tell us that the rates, either we're not investing enough and we should be embarking upon more capital investments within those systems, or our rate structure is such that we can reduce that. But it's a very legitimate question.
Okay, thank you.
Council Rita Bishop.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do understand through your communication from the city manager that we can apply for the Mass General Law to create an enterprise fund if it applies to utility, healthcare, recreation, transportation, and these two enterprise funds that we have meet such requirement. And I personally don't have any objection. I feel that this is a good thing, but I kind of feel that all these revenues went into the general fund at one point, and when we, let's say, had a shortage on, let's say, health care costs or unemployment compensation, we kind of went into the general fund and used that money. I think creating these sort of enterprise funds now is going to hold our feet to the fire, and that's less money available, that it only is going to be slated for these particular funds. So it'll make us try to be more on top of things and try to be more thrifty. And so that's what I wanted to caution you. Not that I'm objecting, I'm just saying that it's like so much like the Social Security, and people say, oh my goodness, there's not enough money in there for our grandchildren. Well, there would be if you didn't use it for this, that, and the other thing. But so these two funds, the money's gonna go in there, which gonna leave less in the general fund for us to pick at. So I'm just thinking out loud when I say these things.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yes.
Council Martin?
Yeah, and that was really the reason for my question originally, was I think the way some of these funds have operated in the past is that the revenue goes into them, but not necessarily the expenses. And I think that's why the Department of Revenue allowed us for a few years to charge the wastewater account to make up for past expenses that weren't charged the way they should have been. And so, yes, they're going to be streams of revenue going into these funds, but as long as the proper expenses are charged, I think, you know, it's one thing to say, you know, to run a department that only has revenue, and when health care costs go up, you say, oh, that the rest of the city has to worry about that. Well, that's not true in these funds anymore. The expenses of the employees, the retirement costs and all that, and I think even as the manager said, the overhead costs, a portion of the auditor's time chargeable to oversight of these should be charged to these accounts. And so it may be tempting to raid them at times, but as you said, in the parking account, it's going to be a long time before we ever see a surplus there. And given the cost of the sewer project, we're likely not to have much of a surplus there before too much time either. So I think it's a good way to manage. It's the way private industry would manage this type of operation generally. So I think it's a good idea and something we're wise to adopt.
Okay. I have one question, Mr. Manager. The council over the years has bonded millions upon millions of dollars for the waste treatment plant and water utility. If we form an enterprise fund with those two facilities, are they going to be subject to be paying for those bonds, or is it going to still lie in the back of this council and the taxpayer?
Yeah, it will be come directly out of the enterprise fund.
So that's a good thing, because we just bought it $19 million for the waste treatment plant, I believe, and
Right, and there's-
millions for the water utility. So
Yeah, right.
I think this is fair. The users are going to pay, and it shouldn't fall on the back of other people. Councilor Broderick?
Thank you. That's one of the questions I was going to ask, is maybe if we could get as these accounts are set up, what's going to be pulled out of the general fund and put under those accounts in a breakdown, and maybe, I know we came up last night in terms of when rate increases are expected, and a forecast, so that we don't end up with $10 million in one of the enterprise funds that we can't use for other in other areas. We want to make sure we adjust the rates accordingly, but forecast for improvements as well. So yeah, I mean, I'm not asking for it tomorrow, but you know, as it's set up and you decide what's going to be pulled out, so we can get a sense, and people at home have an understanding of what they're going to be charged and what it's going to save them on their taxes and so on, and how it all works. Thank you.
Thank you. I do believe that big business would operate the same way. And Councilor Kazanjian?
Thank you, Mayor. Will these operations be handled like in the wastewater department? Will they run this whole thing?
Yes.
Wastewater, also the parking, they'll run it
Right, these will, they're all wastewater and the arena are our two enterprises right now. These two will operate just the same as with wastewater.
Okay, great.
Okay, I'm going to read the reading of the first title for the parking department. Vote, accepting the provisions of Chapter 44, Section 53F and a half of Massachusetts General Laws, an act authorizing cities and towns to establish an enterprise fund for the parking department, to be known as the Parking Enterprise Fund. Roll call.
Councilor Martin?
Yes.
Councilor Arman Mercia?
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercia?
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo?
Yes.
Councilor Broderick?
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield?
Yes.
Councilor Elliott?
Yes.
Councilor Kazandrian?
Yes.
Councilor Lenzi?
Yes.
9 yeas.
Accepting the provisions of Chapter 44, Section 53F and a half of Massachusetts General Laws, an act authorizing cities and towns to establish an enterprise fund for the Lowell Regional Water Utility, to be known as the Water Enterprise Fund. Roll call.
Councilor Martin?
Yes.
Councilor Arman Mercia?
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercia?
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo?
Yes.
Councilor Broderick?
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield?
Yes.
Councilor Elliott?
Yes.
Councilor Kazandrian?
Yes.
Councilor Lenzi?
Yes.
9 yeas.
Okay. Moving on with the agenda. Appointment to the Middlesex Canal Commission, Mark Goldman, Alan Small, Richard Donahue, and Donald LeBlanc. Move for approval by Counsel Milonazo, seconded by Counsel Lindsay. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Congratulations. Vote authorizing the city manager to execute and approve a Brownsfield tax abatement agreement between the City of Lowell and the Environmental Safe Corporation. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Mike Lindsay, seconded by Councilor Jim Milonazo. All in favor of waiving the full reading, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The full reading is waived. Second reading by title, authorizing the city manager to execute and approve a Brownsfield tax abatement agreement between the City of Lowell and Environmental Safe Corporation. Any discussion? Yes, Council Milonazo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a procedural question, I guess through the mayor to the solicitor. Again, I don't have an issue with this, it's just a question. It's more of a civics class than anything else. Under planning form of government, it's usually the city manager that signs agreements, but in this case, we have the manager and the mayor. And is there a reason for that?
I believe in the ordinance where it's set up, it would fall into the council's jurisdiction
Really?
with respect to this.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Roll call.
Councilor Martin. Councilor Arman Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kazanjian.
Yes.
Councilor Lindsay.
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 absent.
I will entertain a motion to suspend the rules. We have two issues before us. Motion to approve by Councilor Elliott, seconded by Councilor Kazanjian. The suspensions are in order. All in favor, signify by saying aye. The suspension of the rules is to bring in a loan order, and I'll read the first title. To borrow $35 million for the purpose of financing the planning, study, design, engineering, and construction and installation costs of upgrades and modifications to the wastewater treatment facility, collection system facility, and existing flood protection systems as incorporated within Phase 1B of the wastewater utility capital improvement plan. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Lindsay, second by Councilor Elliott. All in favor of waiving the full reading, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The full reading has been waived. Second reading by title. To borrow $35 million for the purpose of financing the planning, study, design, engineering, and construction and installation costs of upgrades and modifications to the wastewater treatment facility, collection system facility, and existing flood protection systems as incorporated within Phase 1B of the wastewater utilities capital improvement plan. Mr. Manager.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just address this particular loan order. I apologize that it wasn't on the agenda, or listed on the agenda. This is something we've been working on, and we need to get this in for June 30th in order to qualify for state grant money to SRF funding to assist us with this project. This is, as the council knows, we've been working to develop a couple of points, I guess. One is that we've been working to develop a capital improvement plan for the wastewater plant that includes upgrades to the plant as well as upgrades to the overall system, the CSO project, and also the flood protection program that we're required to maintain in accordance with the Army Corps of Engineers. So we have a whole major capital improvement project or capital improvement plan that Mr. McCarthy and Mr. Young have worked out with our engineers. I would ask that there be a subcommittee meeting of the Finance Subcommittee and the Environmental Subcommittee probably sometime next week in order to hear about that capital improvement program. This particular aspect of the project, really the priority issues that we're facing at the plant regarding the operation, to make sure. We had a problem earlier this year with the screw pumps, getting the wastewater through the system. That obviously could have very serious implications if that system were to break down. The screw pumps and the overall plant that are out there really haven't had an investment of money since in the 30 years that it's been in existence. So it's of major importance that we make sure that it continue to operate, or the city could obviously be in very serious, have some very serious problems. The other part of the prioritization of elements out of the capital improvement program that are included within this loan order are the odor mitigation measures that have been a priority of the city council for some time, and certainly in the last year or so, I've heard that repeatedly. That we need to do something that deal with the odors out there that affects sections of Centerville and sections of Belvedere, where these odors cause the most problem. And then third is the issue of some improvements to the levee that need to be taken in order to be in compliance with the Corps of Engineers requirements in order to provide flood insurance protection for the people in the Centerville area. So that's the purpose of the loan order. Again, I think the subcommittee of the Finance and Joint Finance and Environmental Subcommittee would be a good way to look at the overall capital improvement program before this comes to the council on the 24th.
This is slated to go to a public hearing the 24th of June, so I just caution you on your comments. Okay,
All right, so
Councilor?
motion to send it to the Finance, Environment Subcommittee?
Yeah, motion to, yeah. Second it. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Mr. Manager, you said flooding condition. Would this also include the Rosemont neighborhood?
It wouldn't. It wouldn't include the wall that's being proposed by the Corps of Engineers.
All right.
We've been working with the Congresswoman Tsongas's office on that. This would include the levee along the
I understand.
boulevard.
Okay. All in favor of sending this issue to a public hearing June 24th, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? It's on its way to a public hearing. I also would like to ask for another suspension of the rules. Move for approval by Council Mercier, seconded by Council Martin.
What's it for?
This is for Exonet, another issue that we have to bring forward. All in favor of the suspension of the rules, signify by saying aye. Suspensions are in order. This is a petition by Exonet that to install telecommunication wires throughout the city, and we'd like to send this to a public hearing June 24th as well. It's a benefit for the city, so. Everyone have that in their desk?
Yep.
Could I ask just a question about that?
Yep.
Is this, in the fourth paragraph of their request, it talks about burying wires underground. I mean, are they really going to do that? Or are they going to hang wires on poles? Do we know?
I can't answer that, Councilor. Maybe the manager?
That's here.
What's that?
One of the engineers.
Please come forward to the podium and give us your name, please.
Sure. My name is Tim Smith. I'm with XNet Systems. In regard to that, we're actually attempting to lease Verizon conduit, but we may have to do some minor trenching, less than 850 feet of trenching. And in that case, of course, we would submit engineering plans for the council's consideration.
But the proposal is for underground wiring?
It's mostly aerial.
It is, okay.
It's like 90% aerial.
And what's the service that's going to be provided as a result of all this?
It's a cell service. It's to provide cell service.
Wireless?
Wireless, yes, sir.
So, okay.
It's going to a...
Well, all right, I'll have questions at the hearing, but...
Yeah. Mr. Manager?
If I may, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, this is, the solicitor and I were just discussing this. We haven't had a chance really to look at this. It would be, I suppose we could look at this between now and the public hearing. That might be the, or if the public hearing could be delayed in order for us.
July 8th.
This has been, telecommunication issues have been an issue in a number of municipalities and a number of different options that we may have at our disposal, but obviously,
Can I make a motion to refer this to the city manager?
Well, first we
Either that or delay.
make a motion to delay the referring that to a public hearing and to
More
refer to the
information.
city manager.
Yeah.
Motion to delay the June 24th public hearing till
And
the
refer
council
this to the
receives more information, let the manager study this. Seconded by Council Broderick. All in favor of the motion?
Is there any need for any time sensitivity to this? I mean, how did this happen to get here tonight? I mean,
It was
just submitted to the clerk?
it was presented to the mayor, and I was asked to bring this forward, so that's
Okay.
what I'm doing.
Excuse me, can I?
I have nothing to do with it.
Excuse me, can I comment, President?
So, what's that?
Can I comment?
Sure.
Okay, we actually did submit over a month and a half ago, and actually, time is of the essence. So
But sir, let me explain something to you. My colleagues just received that an hour ago, and we don't know anything about it.
And more importantly, the manager didn't have one.
Right. So I think in due fairness to everyone, we should have time to look at it and be educated on this particular issue. Why is it time sensitive?
Just because we have a schedule for deployment, and again, we submitted over a month and a half ago, and we're running up against a deadline.
Where was it submitted?
Excuse me? I believe it was...
Councilors, it was submitted to the city clerk's office. I've been working with the law department, Eric Schlegel, along with Susan LeMay in the assessor's office to establish a list of abutters. There's a tremendous amount of abutters that we're going to have to notify. They're talking about running wires throughout the city, all over the city. So that was the delay in bringing the petition to the council, as we normally would with any of the utility companies. We would bring in the petition, refer it to a public hearing.
What's the wish of the body?
Well, I support the motion referring this to the manager. I think generally, I think we're all in favor of increased competition for telecommunications devices. I mean, I personally would like to see many more of these facilities go underground. That may or may not be possible in this case, but I think, we need to understand, what's the service that's going to be provided. I mean, we need more wires so we can provide more wireless facilities. Seems counterintuitive to me, but maybe there's a reason for that, and I think we should hear about that. So I support Councilor Broderick's proposal.
A substitute motion.
No.
Substitute motion, because we do have a motion on the floor. Any other discussion?
I think this is an example, Mr. Mayor, of the suspension of the rules on something as important as this. If I'd have known what I know now, I wouldn't have voted for the suspension of the rules. So this is going to work out fine. We're going to delay sending it to a public hearing and send it to the manager, who just received my copy, and then get a report back from him.
Okay. I just want to let my colleagues know, I didn't know anything about this until 25 minutes to 7. So I'm in the docket with this thing as much as you are. Councilor Broderick?
No, I think we just need a vote on it.
Substitute motion by Councilor Broderick to refer this issue, seconded by Councilor Martin, refer this issue to the manager, and the manager then will furnish the council with in-depth information pertaining to this issue. All in favor of the substitute motion, signify by saying aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Substitute motion carries.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, so if it's getting delayed, when will it be delayed to? What's the contact?
I'd suggest contacting the manager's office.
We will certainly try over the course of the next 2 weeks to review this with you, and then if it makes sense, we'll bring it in on the 24th, and it will be scheduled for a public hearing 2 weeks after that.
July.
Okay, thank you, sir.
But obviously it assumes that we're able to come to some resolution on some of these other issues.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Subcommittee reports. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will be brief. The flood subcommittee met a week ago, Monday. We actually met up at the Wang School. Councilor Kazanjian, Councilor Rita Mercier, the mayor was in attendance, T.J. McCarthy, the city engineer, Lisa DeMayo, and the reason for the meeting on sort of a short notice was the residents, including the manager and the mayor's office, received the communication from FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and that communication was a letter from FERC to Boot and L Hydro Corporation, telling them to take down the flashboards, or the remaining flashboards, as well as the steel pins, until they submit a new design, for that system. So, in light of that, we held the subcommittee meeting. It was during the Pawtuckaville Citizens Council meeting, and it was a very good meeting. A number of two motions came from that meeting that I'll bring forward in just a couple of minutes. But essentially, I thought it was, the meeting was interesting, and one important point that came out was really, which is the essence of the concerns of the residents, that the flashboards are too high, the pins are the pins are set close together, or the steel bars actually, they're too close together, and that is causing them not to fail, which is part of the permit. During the high flooding season, and because they're not failing, that water is backing up. It's backing up into Clay Pit Brook, and it's providing, and it's essentially flooding the cellars of people up in the Clay Pit Brook area. So FERC did send Boudinot a letter stating, take the flashboards down, don't put them back up until you submit a plan for us showing the new design or a revised design. So I do want to refer to a couple of gentlemen who went down and got the pins, old and new, which is essentially the crux of the argument, that the pins are not the same. They're a harder steel or a different composite of steel. So with that, Mr. Belay and Mr. Gagnon, they've actually brought the pins here, because sometimes I think a picture tells 1,000 stories, and they're going to show them to us. So, Mr. Belay.
Thank you, Councilor. First of all, thank you very much for coming to the Pawtuckaville Citizens Council for that meeting. It was a great meeting. I think you touched upon some of the things that we spoke about that night at the subcommittee meeting. A couple of things have come up since. The question would be the granite cap that sits on top of the dam. Mr. Mayor, some of our residents have gone down there and taken a look at that cap. That cap has been compromised. In fact, it's being held together with steel plates, and it looks like Swiss cheese. That is a historical granite cap. So that is an issue and something that we're very concerned about also when they come to make these repairs. Also, one of the things that was brought up at that subcommittee meeting, Mr. Mayor, was when they started to remove the flashboards, instead of cleaning up the river in the area next to the Northern Canal, they let all the trash go down river. Now, the last time we had a meeting here with the gentleman from Enel, they claimed that they were the stewards of the river. Well, if that's the case, I believe it's their responsibility to clean up that corner, and also, I believe, clean up the canals, if that's their responsibility. So, with that said, I'd like to also introduce Bob Gagnon, and he's going to show you the historical pins, the pins that should be used by the agreement, and the pins that Boot Hydro are using now.
Hi, I'm Bob Gagnon from Townsend Avenue. It's in the Clay Pit Brook area that has experienced so much flooding. A few weeks ago, Dick Carvel cited historical records that show that the original flashboards were about 2 feet high and about 1 inch in diameter. That was back in 1847. Since then, the record shows that the flashboards have gotten higher and the pins have gotten thicker, longer, and stronger. They're now 1 3/4 inches. The flashboards have gone from 2 feet high to 5 feet high. I recovered some of the pins that have been discarded downriver over the falls, and it clearly backs up the historical records that Dick Carvel dug up. These pins show that they have gotten thicker, longer, and stronger, but they also show how the older pins used to fold over to release the water upriver to prevent flooding, and it shows how the new, stronger pins haven't folded over to release the water during the high water flows, and it caused the flooding in my neighborhood. I'll show you some of the pins. This is the oldest one I could find. It's about 1 inch in diameter. This is the oldest one I could find. It's about 1 inch in diameter, and it's 32 inches long. It could have supported 2 or maybe 3 foot high flashboards. You can clearly see that when it's stuck in the dam, it folded over, released all the water. And you can just physically, by the size of it, you can anticipate how that would happen. Sometime later, they went to 1 3/8 inch diameter pipe with boards 3 and 4 feet high. But these boards, these pins still did their job. They still folded over with the boards to release all the water pent up behind the dam.
And you did a stress test on both of those, right?
Yeah. We did a pressure test at a local machine shop, and we compared the 1 3/8 pins to the newer 1 3/4 pins. Those folded over at 5 tons pressure. These took 25 tons. And you can see by the angle of the pin, that they haven't folded over. This pretty much, the whole dam was at about this angle, not releasing the water, not failing like they were supposed to, causing a much higher water table in the neighborhood. An inspection of the granite capstones holding the pins showed the original holes about 5 feet from the front face of the dam. Many of those holes were enlarged and broken away, presumably from the increased pressure from the stronger pins. They drilled new sets of holes, 2 other sets of holes. The ones that the pins were in this year were a foot back, and they were also closer together. The old pins, the oldest holes out front were about 20 inches apart. The newer pins were about 15 inches apart. So not only are they thicker, longer, and stronger, but they were also closer together. It's clear that Boot didn't want the flashboards to fail no matter what. You know, they took everything in their power to ensure that that didn't happen, that they could still produce power and have less maintenance on the dam. You know, Boot lied when they said that the flashboards had failed at the past meeting. We clearly saw that it hadn't failed. Boot lied when they said the height of the flashboard makes no difference. You can look at the river now and see that it definitely makes a difference. I was contacted by an engineer that works up in New Hampshire in Merrimack, and he said the river all the way up there is 3 to 4 feet lower. And he was curious as to why that would be. But apparently it affects everything all the way up. Boot lied when they said the flashboards not folding over during the flooding made no difference. Of course it would. Why else would James B. Francis design the pins to fail, and why would they have repaired them every single year since then? They did it to prevent flooding. Councilor Rita Mercia put it best when she said that she has a driver's license for a few more years, but if she does something wrong, they could take that license away. I asked that we work together to get Boot Hydro's license revoked. Their actions have caused so much suffering, so much misery, and they cost my neighbors a lot of time and a lot of money to clean up after the flooding. Let's get another operator for the hydro plant. You know, we're for hydropower, we just don't want our neighborhood flooded every year. And we'd like to make sure that the flashboards are installed according to the Wang Locks Agreement, which is a restriction on their deed limiting the height of the boards and limiting the strength of the pins. I'm wondering if the city solicitor can enforce that, or maybe perhaps the Attorney General. But that's a legal restriction placed on their deed by Dr. Wang. He thought someone would come along and do exactly what Boot's doing, and he had that written into the deed with Locks at the time, the owner of the systems, and would just like to see that enforced when the new boards go up to ensure that, you know, we have a decent chance in the spring thaw. And lastly, I'd like to thank, you know, we had the removal of the boards. FERC, you know, acted, but we know it was because of all the work that all the city councilors have done and the state politicians, and then we think that's the only way, you know, any of it got taken care of, you know, and, you know, we're very, very grateful for that, and the neighbors are too. Thank you very much.
We must include also Congresswoman Nikki Songus and her staff.
Sure.
Because they're the ones who brought FERC to this issue and brought Boot Hydro to the table.
Absolutely.
Councilor Elliott.
Well, the two motions that came from the subcommittee, Mr. Gagnon did refer to them, but one is that the city manager contact FERC and ask them to have a public meeting on the new proposed design that I believe they've already have received, So that was one motion, and the second motion, as Bob mentioned, had the city manager report on the, actually, we did receive an opinion, or at least a communication on the agreement with Wang Laboratories when they transferred title on one of the lots, parcel 5 on 820 Pawtucket Boulevard, and that, you know, that NL Boot Hydro adhered to the terms of that agreement. So those are the two motions, Mayor.
Okay, all in favor of the motion, who seconded those motions?
Second.
Seconded by Council Rita Mercer. All in favor of those two motions, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Also, let's accept the report as a report of progress and place it on file by Council Broderick, seconded by Council Lindsay. Council Mercer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could just comment about this meeting, and when I make this statement that the neighborhood groups never cease to amaze me, this is a very perfect example of that, because these people are not professional. They're everyday people, residents in a particular section of the city that were being, you know, inconvenienced. They were being victims of water, of a company that is, they're like Colombo. They went down to the dam, below the dam, to bring these things up here, wherever they got these particular pieces of metal, and they're becoming professional.
We don't know where they got them.
We don't know where they got them, but it's amazing how they turned up anyway. But I mean, it took a lot of digging, and I'm just amazed at it. I'm amazed that there's another gentleman here in the audience who looked up the deeds and went investigating through records and knew that there was an agreement that the properties agreed to install structures more than 5 feet from July through February and 4 feet above the dam from March through June. I wouldn't know where to begin to look for this information, and yet they found it, and they said an agreement exists. I want this company to hold their feet to this, to hold the line, and they had, there's a law, a commitment, live by it, don't burden us any further. And now that we see that the water has receded down, and we ask that that fish water hole there where the gates, the steps, the fish ladder, thank you, the fish ladder is, couldn't we put some water in there? Because they did, the lady is not seeing ducks floating in her backyard, swimming in her backyard. So, I mean, these are people that are so desperate to have things become correct. They're doing everything they can to help us so that we can make things right. And so I commend them for being here, and the heat and the numerous meetings that they've met at. And I also want to commend our Congresswoman, Nikki Songus, for putting a cease and desist order so that they would just stop that till we investigate a little bit further. But when you talk about neighborhood groups, this is a great example of the power of the people. And so I commend them for everything that they're doing. And together, we'll work and do the best we can to make sure that people aren't burdened any further with the least little bit of rain that we have. So it was a very good meeting. Thank you.
Councilor Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilor Rita Mercer really said it very well. We have a subcommittee report here that, if I could just read one line from it, if I can find it, but it says, T.J. McCarthy at the neighborhood meeting, the assistant city manager, said the leadership and tenacity of Dick Carville and Linda Ignacio from the PCC has made this happen. And we see, you know, Bob Gagnon, Paul Belay, and there are many others that have been able to document, you know, which to me is obvious from the naked eye. You know, every time you go over the bridge, I mean, it's hard for me to say the boards are 6 inches higher than it used to be, or a foot or higher, but certainly they don't fail like they used to.
No.
And I think that's obvious to everybody, and for them to go through and demonstrate that to FERC and get FERC action. The neighborhood group has been very complimentary of the government here, but really I think it's the government that owes a debt of gratitude to the citizenry to force government action. And so certainly we're going to be supportive of their efforts going forward and do what we can to make, you know, FERC live up to the agreements that were, you know, force the agreements that were made. So I'm very proud of the residents of Pawtucketville, and I think they've shown us a path that we don't often see from citizens groups. So thank you to all who participated for their efforts.
Council, I'm a
Just
mission.
one quick comment. I've known Mr. Gagnon for many, many years, and you don't want him opposed to you. You don't want him on the other side. So I think that presentation was tremendous. It shows some professionalism and some dedication, and I know there are a lot of people to be thanked for that, but I'm not surprised by what Bob Gagnon found out and how he pursued it, because I've known him for many, many years. So I think this is a great action that's being taken by the subcommittee, and let's hope that it brings them to the table, even at the point of canceling or not renewing their permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Kazanjian.
Thank you, Mayor. I also want to commend the Pawtuckaville Group as an organization by getting together and being so persistent, getting the city councils involved, getting the state delegation, and also the Congressman Nikki Songus involved. And Nikki Songus getting FERC to do what they did with the letter as far as taking down the pins and also the boards. And we had the engineer here from Boot Hydro now probably about 6 or 8 weeks ago, and we all knew he was lying, but to get to the right authority to prove that point that they were lying and didn't have the right pins in there and the right boards, to their persistence, and I want to thank them, and it worked out good. We still have a long fight ahead of us, but we're on the right track.
Thank you, members of the council. Very briefly, wherever I go, whether it's in Lowell or outside of Lowell, down the State House, people will pose this question to me: what is so unique about Lowell? And I said, well, we have wonderful museums and parks and auditoriums, facilities and so forth. But I said, what's unique about Lowell? It's the people. It's the people. And I would give you a title as professional citizens of the city. And that's exactly what you are. And I know I worked with Paul Belay and Mr. Gagnon and many people during the 2006 flood, and I know the integrity and the dedication of Mr. Gagnon. Even though he was flooded out, he took care of his neighbor down the street before he took care of himself. So I'm not surprised that someone walked along that dam and found that steel. I'm not surprised. That's the tenacity and the dedication of this neighborhood. And it's been a long time coming, but I think a picture is worth 1,000 words. And what you just showed us, Mr. Gagnon, you can't dispute that. Thank you so much for your dedication. Council, subcommittee reports? Yes. We did. Yes. Subcommittee report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a subcommittee report. A subcommittee meeting was held on June 3rd in regard to the motion that I presented to name the Lowell High soccer field at Alumni Field in honor of Lucas Cavallo. This is a request that came from his wife, Christina, who is here this evening, as well as a petition signed by close to over 300 signatures that I'd like to present to the clerk as a report, into the record. I could go on and on about Lucas Cavallo. I'm sure you probably don't want to hear the whole thing, but he grew up in Brazil and he spent his youth playing soccer on a junior team, and he became a professional, and he played with the Boston Astros, a franchise of the now defunct Professional Soccer League, which was based in the city of Lowell and played its games at the Boston University. In 1967, the person that discovered Lucas succeeded in signing him to a professional contract, and Lucas moved to Lowell, in which he made his home, and this is where he spent the rest of his life. And he was a starter for the Boston Astro team until 1970, and in 1979, his professional days were behind him, and he began to play in Massachusetts in the over 30 leagues. In 1980, Lucas decided to share his knowledge of the game of soccer and began to coach upstart Lowell Youth Soccer Leagues, and then it brought him his joy and passion to help develop that passion to the youngsters in the Lowell Youth Soccer program. Now, Jim Justice of Lowell, whose son was coached by Lucas when he was 9 years old, summed it up years later when in a Lowell Sun interview regarding a fundraiser for Lucas. He said, "I don't know if you can imagine a professional baseball player coaching Little League. Well, that is just what they had in soccer. After coaching many semi-professional teams, Lucas became the head coach at Lowell High School, a position that he held from 1987 through 1996. And during his tenure as the Lowell High School soccer coach, they had much success, and he received congratulatory letters from the then City Council of 1991, and he brought the Lowell High School soccer team to its first appearance at the state soccer tournament. Now, I could go on and on, but let me just tell you one part of this gentleman. Lucas was known to be a strict but compassionate coach. He would go to the guidance office and he would pull kids' report cards, and he would counsel them to do their homework, and he would stress the importance of your homework. And one day when a player had no transportation to attend a press event in Boston, Lucas lent him the car and even money for gas. Lucas was this type of a disciplinarian because many of the kids that he coached needed the discipline, and Lucas was more than a coach for many, many players. I have one of those players here, and if I could suspend the rules and allow him to speak. His name is Gerald White. I would like him to say what he said at the meeting.
Motion to suspend the rules by Council Rita Mercer, second by Council Broderick. All in favor of the suspension, signify by saying aye.
Gerald?
Suspensions are in order.
Thank you very much. This is Gerald White. He was one of many people that spoke at the subcommittee, along with Gary McGee, along with Coach Bossy, who was the wrestling coach. Many people, Dennis Canny came up and spoke. Many of the students came up and spoke. But I thought what Gerald had to say was very interesting. Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Gerald White. I am a graduate of Lowell High School, class of '94, graduate of UMass Lowell, class of '98. Lucas Cavallo was my high school coach. He was, I guess you would say, the first person that introduced really organized soccer to me and introduced what a team spirit really meant, and also what it meant to really care about someone. When Ms. Mercer was just talking about the student that Lucas would go to Coach Bossy's office and the guidance office and pull their report cards, as well as also give his car. Like I said the last time at the subcommittee meeting, that was me. I'm the student that he yelled at, that I needed my grades up. You know, if I were to use soccer at all to do anything, I needed to get my grades up. I needed to be a more responsible young man. It's because of his care, his love, his compassion, and everything that Ms. Mercer is saying is the reason why I went to college. I was fortunate enough to be able to play soccer well enough, and Lucas was great enough to invite people and coaches and whatnot to our games to scout, and I was able to receive a scholarship to go to UMass Lowell. And that's his doing. You know, that's the kind of person he was. That's the kind of person, you know, the spirit that he presented to all of us that played with him, but not just the kids that played with him, but everybody that he met, from parents to fans and whatnot. He embodied that. And this is why we're here tonight. You know, we sat around here since 6:30, you know, in the heat, trying to make sure that you guys heard that we really mean this, and we really want this to happen. He is what you would consider a true leader, a true mentor. You know, my first comments to the subcommittee a little while back on the 3rd, I was going to talk about all the meanings of teacher, all the meanings of mentor, all the meanings of friendship, and all that stuff. But as I said on the 3rd, that's what Lucas is. To every one of us that he coached, probably his 9 years of coaching, any student, any athlete that you met at Lowell High School, they'll tell you that Lucas was tough, but he was fair, and he was also somebody that brought more than soccer to soccer. He made you realize that you needed to do your responsibility to make the team better. And I really appreciate you guys doing this, and I hope it goes through and it works out, and I would love to be there to play in the inaugural game at the Lucas Cavallo Stadium. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Could someone please open that door?
Thank you very much.
So let some ventilation
Mr.
in
Mayor.
here. Thank you.
I just wanted my colleagues to hear a little bit about what took place at that subcommittee. I have a lot of people in the audience, and because of the heat, I know it's too hot, but I want you to know that at that subcommittee, numerous people, numerous students of Lucas Cavallo come up to speak on his behalf on what a great individual that he was, not only with the coaching professionalism, but to be a mentor and all the things that he has done. Now, I know that Lucas died 10 years ago from cancer. At that time, there would have been a groundswell of people to support this. This is 10 years later, and it just came before me. Hearing everything at the subcommittee, City Councilor Mike Lindsay made the motion to support the motion to name that field after Lucas Cavallo, seconded by Councilor Alan Kazanjian. It was unanimous, and I would like to take a roll call and offer if we could do the same here right now, if we could do that. So if I could have a roll call, because this would be sent to the Board of Parks, and I would be representing the city and my subcommittee to support this. And I have 300 signatures from people that supported it as well.
Councilor, who made the motion at the subcommittee?
Mike Lindsay made the motion.
Motion by Councilor Lindsay, seconded by Councilor
And seconded by Alan
Kazanjian.
Kazanjian to support the recommendation to name that field after Lucas Cavallo.
Any discussion? Councilor Kazanjian.
Thank you, Mayor. I also agree with Councilor Mercier. I was there along with Councilor Lindsay at the subcommittee, and I was impressed of the people that were speaking on behalf of Lucas Cavallo, who I never knew. 10 years later, we have former probation chief, coaches, business owner, many residents, but was very moving that the number of students that Lucas had were speaking on behalf 10 years after the fact, that when Lucas passed away, and how he touched their lives on the field, and more important, and life in general. And many of the kids today that he taught that spoke were teachers, and I feel that Lucas had a great part of that. So I'm 100% behind the motion, and hope my colleagues can support it also.
Councilor Lindsay.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe I'm a kinesthetic learner, and now not only do I understand how the pins work at the dam, but it's also very visible to me that Lucas was, his legacy and his love for the children and his love for the game of soccer will live on for a long time in this community. And I see people here tonight and at the subcommittee meeting who will carry on that legacy. That'll be with us for a long, long time as we go forward. There's some great soccer players that have come out of the city and gone on and received scholarships, as was mentioned before. And I wholeheartedly support this motion, and I think it's a great way to honor the efforts of Lucas. Thank you.
I might add that if we had 50 people go to that podium, no one could have said it better than Gerard White, a graduate of Lowell High School, graduate of UMass Lowell, and a former student under the tutelage of Mr. Cavallo. And I think you said it very, very well, Gerard. Excellent. And if there's any other discussion, we'll have a roll call on the motion. Roll call.
Councilor Martin?
Yes.
Councilor Armin Mercier?
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercier?
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo?
Yes.
Councilor Broderick?
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield?
Yes.
Councilor Elliott?
Yes.
Councilor Kazanjian?
Yes.
Councilor Lindsay?
Yes.
9 yeas.
Are there any other subcommittee reports? Councilor Milonazo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be brief, partly because that's kind of a tough act to follow. But the Economic Development Subcommittee did meet this evening at 5 o'clock to deal with 3 issues, 2 relating to the Hamilton Canal project and the other related to the disposition of city land. Myself, Councilor Bill Martin, Councilor Alan Kazanjian, and Councilor Mike Lindsay were in attendance along with Councilor Broderick. And we discussed first the issue of the jam plan roadways. As we all know, we had an issue once the plan came forward through a public participation process through the Trinity Master Plan, where there was talk about eliminating parking along Appleton Street, making Appleton Street 4 lanes, redirecting traffic on Jackson Street, actually increasing or redesigning the bridges along the Lord overpass and the like, changes to really 38 intersections that are within this plan. And as a result of that, we did receive public participation, public comments, all good comments and from the standpoint of the city's position. And as a result of that, it was reported tonight at the subcommittee that the city's decided to hire another traffic engineer to do a peer review of the recommendations that have come forward through the public participation process. So again, I would encourage the residents in the Jambra area, along with the people who own businesses in that area, to stay tuned, to stay involved. We have been working with our state delegation and getting money through the transportation bond bill to design some of the planned improvements there. It was reported that we have submitted the documentation through MEPR to do the environmental notification filing, which is now underway. But I do think that as a result of the public comment period, the public participation, the neighbors and businesses being involved, I think at the end of the day, we'll have a good proposal from the standpoint of redesigning the traffic in that neighborhood. Because again, as it was stated this evening, we're increasing traffic probably 19 to 26%. So we really do need to deal with the streets and roadways in that neighborhood. So we will be continuing to watch that. And there's another public meeting, I believe, June 18th, working with Trinity. So that was the first thing we talked about. The second thing we talked about, we did get an update on the lease negotiations. Fred Faust and Joanne Souza from the Edge Group, who are actually working on leasing the garage space, the retail space in the early garage. They did indicate that they have a signed letter of intent for about 6,000 square feet for a restaurant to locate in one of the retail spaces at the garage. They hope to have a lease back to the subcommittee probably within 30 days, or at least to the city manager, and then to the subcommittee within 30 days, so that we can then take a look at it and bring it back to the full council. The good news that they are advertising, they're putting the space out on various websites. They advertises in the Bank and Tradesman, the Lowell Sun and the like, and they have had probably over 50 showings at this particular point in time, and they are starting to make some headway. Unfortunately, we are in a difficult economic time as it relates to real estate presently, but I think at the end of the day, they really did give, in my opinion, and I'll certainly defer to my colleagues, but I think they did give a positive report. I think it's important to get the first tenant in there to be a catalyst, so that other things can happen. So, again, those two issues were accepted by the by the Economic Development Subcommittee as a report of progress. The last item that we talked about was as a result of a motion by Councilor Kazanjian dealing with the disposition of city-owned land. And as you recall, in February we received a report. Actually, the motion was in February. We actually received a report in March from the Planning and Development Office regarding all of the land that's owned by the city. In fact, some land that's had already been sold. But again, I'll let Councilor Kazanjian speak to this issue. But the intent was to try to identify parcels that we could sell to generate income for the community, which really is a good idea. And the city manager, along with Adam Bakey, reported that we're in the process continuously of doing that, and he hopes to bring some RFPs forward in the not-too-distant future so that we can continue to do that. Not only some large development parcels, but also some smaller parcels that, again, we can put together under an RFP package and sell that property. So, again, it was an hour-and-a-half meeting this evening before the regular City Council subcommittee, and I think we were able to get a lot accomplished, and I submit that as a report of progress.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Kazan. Anyone else like to speak? Councilor Kazan?
Thank you, Mayor. It was a good meeting. We got a lot of information from Adam Backey and the manager on the jam plan. I was happy to hear that all the infrastructure, when they do the work, it's going to be either funded by the state or Trinity, and no cost to the city at all. Adam Backey is going to give us information as we get proposals in for what type of development they're going to do as far as the building and also the infrastructures also. And then also on the Fred Faust with the Edge Group on the parking garage. Again, a lot of information that we received, how they're making out with different tenants, and they have one solid tenant, anchor tenant that's going to hopefully take place. It's very close, according to them, and they have a couple of possibilities for different restaurants that they're right there. And the last one was the, what was the last one there? Oh, yeah, disposal of the property. Again, a lot of information on that, and the manager's going to work with us and get back to us middle of August. Is that correct? And hopefully we can sell some property and get some revenue back to the city, put some land on the tax rolls. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Lindsay?
Thank you, Mayor. I also think it was an excellent meeting, and I just might like to add that I think the next visionary meeting is the 24th of June, and one of the things that sticks out at the meeting is that there's an awful lot of participation in what's going on with this project, and there's an awful lot of input from people in the community. So I think the more people that are interested or that want to get involved, that opportunity presents itself, and that's going to help us to move this thing forward and gain some momentum.
Any other discussion on the report? Except the three reports.
Just quickly, just to confirm that date, I thought it was the 18th. Would it be the night of a council meeting? I don't know if it would be the night of a council meeting.
I would have to, do you have to have that?
Oh, today's the...
The 24th
10th,
would be,
so
we'll check on that. I'll check on that. I
Okay.
don't have that on my schedule right now, so.
The next council meeting is the 24th.
Right, I thought it was Wednesday, the 18th, but I could be wrong. I thought the next visionary session was Wednesday, the 18th.
We'll get that out to the
That's a
council.
school committee meeting night, I know that.
Okay, all right, okay.
Right. Except the three reports presented by Councilor Milonazo was a report of progress, seconded by Councilor Rita Mercia. All in favor of the reports, signify by saying aye. The reports have been accepted, placed on file. Moving on with the agenda. Miscellaneous back-based signs for Sovereign Bank, 170 Merrimack Street. Request to send that to the Law Department by Councilor Milonazo, seconded by Councilor Martin. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? It's on its way to the Law Department. Poll location, National Grid requests poll location, Viney Street. Hearing on June 24th. Any discussion on that particular issue? Council unanimously sending this to a hearing on June 24th. Motions. Motion by Councilor Kazanjian. City Council requests the city manager to have the traffic division remove the no parking signs at Father Norton Manor, 117 and 137 High Street, to allow for additional tenant parking. Seconded by Councilor Mercia. On the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. This is to the manager. I was wondering if, I received a couple of calls during the week, and what's happening from the tenants, they have no parking in their parking lot. More tenants have cars now, and they're having a problem. So they would like to use that that street on back of High Street, which is Fayette Street. And I wonder if we could put some type of signage up for parking for low housing or parking for the address at 117, 137.
We'll have DPD go out and traffic engineer go out and take a look at that and see.
Okay,
It
great.
shouldn't be a.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any discussion on the motion? Councilor Milonazo.
Thank you. I think it's good to try to improve the quality of life for the residents at Father Norton Manor. I would, though, suggest that we do get the Housing Authority's opinion on this issue. I'm sure it'll probably be fine, but I just think since it's their property, you might just want to have them weigh in on it.
Okay, Councilor Kazanjian.
Thank you, Mayor. I did receive a call from Gary Wallace, the director, today, and he suggested that also for signage, if we could put something for parking for low housing, he was on board with that.
Okay. Councilor Broderick?
I just have a concern with putting up signage. I know we ran into that issue before with reserving parking on the street.
This is remove the no parking sign.
No, but I think he's also, Councilor Kazanjian's also asking for a signage saying Housing Authority parking, residents. That's all. I think it's a good idea to allow more parking if it's feasible traffic-wise, but I have a concern about putting up signs designating parking, that's all. I don't know if we can do it.
We have had that issue in the past, and we'll have to see what we can do out in that area. We'll work with the Housing Authority, and Councilor Broderick is correct. There is an issue out that we've been grappling with and throughout sections of the city regarding reserving spaces on public ways, but we'll see if there's some solution that we can find.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Lindsay?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And have we heard from the tenants regarding that motion? I'm sure that 15 minutes after this meeting, Joe will call from Father Norton. And,
I know Joe. Yes. He's a great guy, too.
but we have approached them regarding the signage.
Well, the tenants are the one that called me,
Right.
and Joe was one of the tenants
Right.
that called.
Right.
And it was more than one.
It's to improve the quality of life of the people there. And all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Any opposed, the motion carries. Next motion on the agenda. Motion by Council Rita Mercer. Request the City Council prohibit the use of cell phones and/or any communication devices during the regular, special, or other City Council meetings. Seconded by Council Lindsay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In an effort to be more professional and in tune with the rules of this board, it is imperative that we not only follow the rules, as was stated at the last council meeting, but also look at ways that do not have a negative appearance or a dark shadow over this council chamber. Having said that, it has become apparent that there are those amongst us that appear to be with their head down as if they're sleeping, but in essence, they're texting messages on their cell phone to members of this chamber. And I'm all for socializing, but during a council meeting should not be an appropriate place for such behavior. Not only that, I'm concerned that it would be interpreted as a violation of the open meeting law, and my main concern is that we were elected to serve on this board, but I wonder how many times do we need to take our cell phones out of our pocket and proceed to the cloakroom as if we cannot make a decision on our own, but we need to be directed by someone else who called to offer a new question to be asked. Or it's almost like they have a lifeline and we're watching Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. I mean, we're at a disadvantage if someone is texting, let's say, Councilor Mercia, for example, and I don't know that he's asking this question. That's like slam dunking the manager. Ask him this one. So Councilor Mercia could raise his hand and ask the manager a question that someone at home is, I don't know, you never know what could happen, but it doesn't look right. It's not professional. It is unprofessional, in my opinion, and in keeping with the rules, I feel that this motion should be sent to the Rules Subcommittee for further discussion and possible enactment. So I say, put that in your phone and text it. That's my...
I just want to clarify, nobody texts me because I shut my cell phone the minute I walk in
And
this
that's
room.
the way it should be. And I believe that in the House of Representatives and in the Senate, they don't allow a cell phone. If we can't wait 2 hours or 3 hours without a phone, then there's something wrong with us and we shouldn't be here. I'm certainly sure if there's an emergency, that's a different story. If there's an emergency, I'm sure we'd be contacted. There's a phone in the other room, but...
Council Broderick?
Thank you. I am one of the people that do text, and I think it's a combination of things, is the technology advancement, and some people are more comfortable than others. As far as being professional and following rules, I believe we just saw a council read a speech, which is in violations of Robert's Rules number 27, so...
What was that again, Council?
Robert's Rules number 27, reading a speech, prepared speech. I don't think we can do that on the floor. So, you know, I don't have a problem. I think we should have some type of rule or address the advances in technology and emails and in text messaging, because, quite frankly, if we're going to make a rule, we probably ought to contact the DA's office and find out what are their standards now. I know they have promulgated some rules or laws or benchmarks, if whatever you want to call it, suggestions for email, and I think it would be wise for us to find out what it is for text messaging as well. You know, I have 5 children. I get in one of the problems with the advancements in technology is, as I refer to it, it's an electronic leash, and at times you become a captive to it, I suppose. And I can tell you, I will do my best to if it somehow offends people, to refrain as much as I can. But they're coming with the advances in technology. There's an expectation of a response from emails and other avenues. And you know, again, I get a lot of communications from constituents, citizens, friends, family through electronic means, whether it's text messaging or emails. have sent text messages to people in the council, but I think that we have to distinguish between substantive text messages, which may be a violation of the open meeting laws, and what may be considered an offhand comment or a joke or something of a different nature. I don't have a problem with implementing some type of rule that would restrict, obviously, any type of violation of the open meeting law. I don't think, it can be tolerated. I don't think it should be. But I think that, as I made the motion a couple of weeks ago, we're going to implement rules, we ought to enforce them all. And I think that that's going to be the critical part of it. But in going forward, to establish a rule to ban it all, throw the baby out with the bathwater, I think is a mistake. And if I have technology that I can go online and look up an issue or something to that effect, or if we get emails on our desk, as we often do, from constituents that get printed out and left for us, and I want to go down and respond to it while I'm here on the council floor, I don't think that should be an issue. But I do think there is an issue if I'm communicating with the manager and other council, potentially an issue, asking for a vote or asking for a comment or information that the others aren't privy to. So I agree in part, but I disagree with throwing the baby out with the bathwater, I guess. I think we ought to maybe get some guidelines from the DA's office as to what we should and shouldn't allow.
Well,
leave it up to the solicitor's office.
Councilor, if 5 councilors feel strongly that there's no cell phones to be used during a council meeting, that's the end of it.
Oh, I understand. The majority rules.
We don't
There's
need
no
a
question.
district attorney to tell us that.
There's no question that the majority rules, my suggestion is that we find out what the rules are, because we do also get emails from the city manager's office. And we're not going to stop getting emails for updates and things like that. So I think that we ought to make sure that we understand what the guidelines are for all of it. That's all.
Any other discussion? Councilor Milonazo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As chairman of the Rules Subcommittee, I'd be happy to take this up along with Councilor Rita Mercier and Councilor Armin Mercier. Again, I do have a cell phone. I have it on. I have it on for other reasons than getting text messages from my colleagues here on the floor of the council, because my phone actually doesn't text message back. So I can't be accused of doing that. But I have to tell you that I'm a little disappointed. We actually talked about this issue at the Lowell Plan breakfast, Councilor Rita Mercier, myself, and Councilor Broderick. And then when I got my meeting packet, there it was. And when I was talking to Councilor Rita Mercier, who I obviously consider to be a colleague and a friend, she didn't seem to have an issue with it. In fact, we were I wouldn't say we were laughing about it, but she was calling Councilor Broderick a devil and whatever it was he was doing. Again, I was never offended by anything that he had ever done with me. We never did anything that was of any substantive nature relative to text messaging during a city council meeting. So I was surprised that the motion was there without having her say to me, as a member of the Rules Subcommittee, I'm going to file this motion, because it's something that I'm concerned about. And again, she has every right to do that. But it just, again, because it seemed to be at the breakfast, it was approached in more of a lighthearted way than a serious way, that her speech that she gave tonight, telling the viewing audience that we were getting very close to crossing the line on a professional basis, concerned me. So again, I just wanted to share my thoughts on that. But again, I'd be more than happy to look at it.
I don't want to see this issue turn into a Donnybrook. We're doing fine so far, and we're going to send it to the Rules Subcommittee. Council.
That's fine. That's fine.
I don't have any problem with people having a cell phone and texting it, but I think there's a place for it, and I don't think this room is the place for it. Having said that, I knew that in checkers, you have to anticipate the next move. So I did know that, and I even commented to someone that, watch them say it's a rule of number 27 that you're not supposed to read. Let's get one thing perfectly straight here. I'm 60 years old. I'm not a young whippersnapper, but the fact remains that for 13 years, I've had to have notes, or I would go off and talk for a half an hour on a particular subject. I don't think in this heat you'd want me to do that. So I stick to what I wrote so that I would make this a smooth transition. I have an awful lot of calls too. I have awful lot to say, and I want to limit it to be specific and not rattle on and on and on, which I very wholeheartedly can do. So I'm still going to do that. I don't actually think I'm violating a rule. If I wanted to bring in a piece of material that I thought I should, was a letter or something. This isn't a letter. These are my notes. I need to have notes because my mind is off in a tangent. I'd be talking forever and a day, and I certainly don't want to do that.
Anyone else? Councilor Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To me, this is an issue of technology, I guess, coming up against the reality of the rules that we operate under. And Councilor Broderick brought up the example of email. I think email is a terrific device. I know in the school department they use it a lot, on the school committee, a lot more frequently than the manager does, primarily for scheduling purposes. You know, can everybody make a meeting at 6 p.m. next Wednesday to discuss XYZ? Works terrific. It really helps simplify our function. But when somebody replies to all, you know, I don't agree with line item 27 in the budget, I think you cross the line into a violation of the open meeting law, into the deliberative process, which is supposed to be out here and open. I, for one, haven't seen any evidence that anybody is using a cell phone or any other sort of device to circumvent the open meeting law. And I don't think we need a rule to tell us that. I think we have the open meeting law to tell us. I think the issue here is, do we want to ban, you know, turn off your cell phone? I mean, I have occasionally gotten a cell phone call during a city council meeting. It could be, you know, a call from a client, you know, where we have a big transaction closing the next day and I had to leave to come to the meeting, and what time am I going to be back? That's maybe happened once in the last 6 years. I occasionally get a call, you know, from my wife, can you get the prescription for one of our kids on your way home from work? That might come in a text message. So, I mean, it happens to me very infrequently. I don't think it's going to be a big impact on my life if we all decide we should turn off our cell phones that when we come into the chamber. But I do think it's a convenience that most people have gotten accustomed to, and I think that has operated without without very little intrusion. So we want to have a debate at a subcommittee about whether a rule is appropriate or not. Certainly we can have that debate. I haven't seen any really lack of decorum shown about this issue, but to me that's the issue really. It's a question of decorum and not a question of legality. I think that issue was already well settled before the law, and I have never, you know, had a communication with anybody in violation of the open meeting law via cell phone or anything else. I think part of the communication that goes on, you know, via text messages, you know, what we whisper. I asked Councilor Mercier tonight how he's going to vote on item 19, which was about the budget, and we took care of last night, just as a joke. I guess I could have easily sent a text message to Councilor Broderick about the same thing because he doesn't sit next to me, but I wouldn't. It's too much trouble to do that. So I don't really have seen the need for this. But if the council wants to consider it before the subcommittee, then so be it, and we'll see what happens.
Councilor Lindsay?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that it's probably an issue of professional courtesy, and you know, I could pull out my cell phone, I could start texting, or I could, you know, do whatever I choose, but it just sets a bad precedent that if Rob Gagnon is speaking or something, and let's say we had all of the councilors text messaging one another or looking down and not paying attention, I think the goal here is probably to condense the meetings. There's a lot of important things being said, and if you feel that someone's not paying attention, and then all of a sudden somebody's repeating what you just said or not sure what you just said. So I just think it's an issue of probably professional courtesy. I think everybody could do it, and if everybody did do it, it would set a bad precedent. It would, I think, take the meetings to a different level. And I just think it's probably a good motion. I can understand an emergency or something like that, and maybe you need access to it. But you know, I think that I don't use it because I don't think it's appropriate. Probably the State House doesn't use it or bans it because they probably don't deem it appropriate. And I think those rules should carry on here. Thank you.
Councilor Kuzanjian?
Thank you, Mayor. Serving on a zoning board for 15 years, same situation with a public hearing. We never once, I don't think anybody ever pulled a cell phone out. And coming on board here, I was kind of taken back somewhat that it did happen, and like Council Lindsay said, I think it's just professional courtesy that we keep them off and or keep them just unless it's an absolute emergency. We answer the phone or go into the cloakroom and answer it then if your wife or somebody, some family member absolutely needs you, and I think that's pretty much it.
Motion to refer this, I'm sorry, Councilor Ahmed.
I'd like to suggest that let's not assume something that hasn't been said here tonight. No one is talking about emails from the manager. No one is talking about emails in your office. Nobody's talking about talking about cell phones to be disconnected during the council meeting. That's, I think, the motion. And so bringing up all that other technology stuff, I think, is like a red herring as far as I'm concerned. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the Rules Committee looking at what effect does a cell phone in operation have at a public meeting. It's that simple. Thank you.
Motion to refer this to the, Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I don't have a problem with it going to the Rules Subcommittee, but I think Councilor Martin put it pretty well. What's the difference between me talking to Councilor Kazanjian, you know, without a text, or talking to, you know, Councilor Milanazzo with a text? I think if it's just disrupting the meeting, then that clearly is something that should be taken a look at. If a phone is ringing, the cell phone is ringing, that is disruptive. And cell phones are banned, whether it's, you know, I don't know, a movie theater or other locations. But I don't mind it going to the Rules Subcommittee, and we'll have this discussion. If people are upset about people texting, then they should probably use a little bit more or better judgment. But I don't see how texting is disruptive. But when it comes to the BlackBerry, people have BlackBerry. I have a BlackBerry. I can tell you more often than not, and coincides with what Rita Mercier says. I'll get emails from the manager. I save them. I can pull it up on them because you tend to forget some things, and tonight was a good example. I couldn't find a document that was sent by regarding the flood subcommittee. I get a chance to pull it up. So, you know, I guess it's everyone's individual preference. But if it's disruptive, then that makes sense. But, you know, taking phone calls, I haven't seen that here. I mean, I think we do. When we all get phone calls, we politely get up and, you know, whether you have kids or if they're managing things at home, you know, get up and go to the cloakroom. So I don't mind going to the subcommittee, but I also think we have far other things to discuss in the city rather than regulating cell phones in the chamber. And so hopefully we've gotten our opinions out and people can use their judgment a little bit better. But thank you.
Motion to refer this to the Rules Subcommittee. All in favor of that motion, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The motion is headed for the Rules Subcommittee. Motion by Councilor Rita Mercer. City Council requests the City Manager have the library report on the computer lab use at the Senior Center and report on ways and means of increasing services. Seconded by Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I again have notes before me so that I can be so specific and pinpoint exactly what I want to say, that the city has developed a great partnership between the library and the senior center in terms of computer availability. When the senior center was built and newly opened, we were supplied with 19 computers through a grant that the former director of the library, Mary Johnson Lally, provided through the Bill Gates grant. And over the years, this allowed the seniors the opportunity to explore new technology and a new venture through computer travel. And then there was excitement about this endeavor, but I think it lost its way. I know that the computers came in handy lately with that Lowell Senior Account initiative that's taken place, and they are using it. But as far as training and lessons go, there is this void. Maybe we could appeal to the public to see if we could look for a person that is a retiree with computer skills who would like to share their knowledge and make others feel useful. Maybe we could form another partnership with CTI and offer a stipend to a volunteer to teach classes at the senior center I'd also be interested in restricting the use of the computers to seniors, only because the people who are coming in off the street and going into our senior center on the second floor is causing a little bit of concerns there. Items are being stolen, other things are happening. So although this is a public place, there should be limitations and restrictions to protect our seniors. The goal here through this motion is to provide a reliable, trustworthy person to teach computer classes on a regular basis. And secondly, I need to restrict the use to have it be seniors only. So if we could look into those
discussion on the motion?
possibilities.
All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Motion by Council Reader Mercer. City Council requests the city manager to have the law department draw a vote for 60-day trial handicap parking, 7 Tiffany Drive, seconded by Councilor Kazanjian.
I didn't write a letter on this particular motion because evidently the motion speaks for itself.
Okay, thank you. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Last motion of the evening by Mayor Caulfield. Any objections? I'll read it from here. I'll gladly get down there and sit there. By Mayor Caulfield, City Council requests the city manager have the building department condemn the tenement building adjacent to St. Patrick's Church, seconded by Council Rita Mercer. I don't have the exact address. It's on Cross Street. The building department knows of the building. It's a huge 6-tenement building. It's owned by the Archdiocese of Boston. There is a private businessman who will pay for the demolition. St. Patrick's Church would like to see the building removed. It's sitting there dormant. It's a sore eye, and they can beautify that whole area with some green space. And it's a building that's been sitting there dormant for years. And no one's, I don't think there's anyone living in it, but it's just a building that should be demolished. No cost to the city. So, yes, Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. How come the city hasn't condemned it yet? Is it structurally sound, or, I mean, if it's vacant, if it's a fire hazard, there's a number of reasons why. And the Archdiocese wants it taken down, and they have a...
I think the issue...
Mr. Manager?
I think I'm not sure of the specifics of why if the building, or the Inspection Services Department has looked at condemning it and it may not meet standards, or what exactly. I think one of the issues might be, and I could be venturing out here a little bit, is that it's owned by the Archdiocese, not by the church. Where the church may want it down, the Archdiocese may not.
Okay.
St. Patrick's would like to see it removed, so would the parishioners, and there is a businessman who would come forward and pay for the...
But in order to condemn it, it has to meet certain criteria. I mean, we don't want to get in any legal bind. I mean, and it probably does. It's been sitting for 6 years. But
I'll have Inspectional Services.
Thank you.
If the city condemns the building, it's the first step. Councilman?
At one point, I know the diocese had visions of putting some sort of affordable housing development. Is this that building?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which at the time it was proposed, I thought was much too dense, but that's another issue for another day,
Then you know
I
the
guess.
building, Council. Anyone else? All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Before we adjourn, first of all, I want to thank you for an excellent meeting. And we're all worried about it being lengthy, but I think we're getting out of here at a reasonable time. But Saturday evening from 5 to 7, I want to thank Karen Bell for this. There will be a jamboree at the new garage, top floor. It's going to be wonderful for children. There's going to be the Lowell Fire Department, Lowell Idols, Lowell's Mobile Police Unit, all kinds of issues for children. There's going to be quite a band. The Hot Day at the Zoo band. It's going to be a wonderful thing for everyone. And I'll tell you, as hot as it was Saturday evening, my wife and I and Karen Bell and other people were up at that top floor. It was beautiful. It was really nice. It was a nice breeze. So it's going to be a nice evening to come down and enjoy. It's 5:30 to 7:30, and looking forward to the residents in the city to come down as long as the council. Council Lindsay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to go back on the visionary meeting, and I stated it was June 24th. It's Wednesday, June 18th, And I failed to mention, there's a website also where you can view the traffic plan and some of the other details, and that's www.hamiltoncanal.com.
Now, where was that meeting going to be held?
And that meeting will be held...
Where?
I think it's in the mayor's reception room.
Go to the website, and it'll tell you where that
Yeah,
meeting
but
will be.
what I'm saying, the reason I'm bringing that up is a reception for Superintendent Carla Brooks Bear in the mayor's reception room that night.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, and then tomorrow night, were you going to mention meeting the superintendent?
Yes, tomorrow evening at the Hall of Flags at the Lowell Memorial Auditorium, there will be a reception for Dr. Chris Augustus Scott. I want to thank the Lowell Plan for furnishing some hors d'oeuvres and some nice food. Also, the Mill City Management, Tom McKay, Leo Krieg, and Terry McCarthy for furnishing some beverages. It should be a nice evening from 5:30 to 7:30. I'd like to see the council there and meet the new superintendent of schools. Any other discussions? Motion to adjourn by Council Lindsay, seconded by Council Elliott. Thank you. Yes, sir. One closer.